Welcome to the Dynasty Academy. Michael Washington. Mark is being a pompous ass before we came on air, and Mark Ongst.
Well, I mean, you are. I'm not. I mean, you are.
Eli Manuel.
Why would you draft a wide receiver too?
Eli, you can cut this out.
You could leave it in, too.
Restart.
Kyler Murray has a fantastic arm. It's just the decision-making for him, for me. Michael Vick just made better decisions, I feel like, overall.
Makes sense. I said 1 or 2 inches, growing 1 or 2 inches, and you're like,
And he's still going,
I have leagues on too many apps. I don't know what to follow.
If you can believe it, it is already episode 5 of the Dynasty Academy here on the Shady Sports Network. As always, I'm Michael Washington. I got Mark Ongst with me tonight. Eli is not with us at this particular moment in time. Hopefully we'll have him back soon. Hope everything's good out there, Eli, for you. If you do happen to hop on, that'd be awesome as well. Tonight, we're going to talk about my least favorite position offensively in fantasy football because Mark loves to torture me. And he decides to, he does, see, there's facts thrown out there. We are going to discuss our top 12 fantasy dynasty tight ends moving forward for the rest of the year, or rest of the way, not including the rookies that may be in this class, though I don't think there's any really there's one standout rookie, I think, and other than that, there's 2 guys that are kind of getting some buzz.
yeah.
The guy behind Bowers, but, I mean... So we'll include that later on. We'll update that list as well. We were going to go 16 deep, which Mark decided he wanted to torture me a little further with, and then I realized 16 is actually pretty easy to get to. So we're going to do honorable mentions to start off with, because I did have 16 on my list. And we are also going to do, 2 deep sleepers in this year's class, maybe, if we have time. We discuss rookies later on. I mean, I don't care either way, but if we get to it, we get to it, right?
Yeah, we can do it this week,
Yeah.
next week, some other time. It just, your love of tight ends, so I figured we'd probably end up breezing through this list so you could get done with it as fast as you possibly can.
No, I'm going to keep the integrity of talking about the tight end position and talk about what the position means, because in real football, the tight end position is very, very valuable. In fantasy football, it is the equivalent of watching paint dry. So,
well, it could have some value. You just have to find you have to be able to find the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews, probably about 4 years ago now. Probably about 4 years ago.
Yeah, 3 or 4. 4 for sure, I think.
In rounds 15, 16, whatever, that's the diamond in the rough you got to find. It's hard to do. It's not going to work all the time, but that's really where you're in with this position. You're going to get, because unless you're getting a Sam Laporta in a rookie draft in the second round, which again, that's like finding a diamond in the rough the way he turned out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, even Dalton Kincaid, not really a value where you ended up having to draft him in rookie drafts unless he becomes Travis Kelce for 10 years.
Right. And the tight end position notoriously is the longest developing position in all of fantasy football. You have to wait the longest for them to develop. And a lot of times it's guys outside of round 1 that you really want. Yeah. Usually it's the guys that are in round 3, 4, 5, 6, and in some cases undrafted, but it's usually the later round guys or mid-round guys that you really want to look at. Now, you mentioned Sam Laporta. He's like one that was, he was a first-round pick. He's really, in my eyes, in recent memories, the first-round tight end that really has stuck out in recent years, in recent memory.
Are you saying first-round rookie or first-round?
As a rookie. First-round tight end in football as a rookie to have the year that he really had. There really hasn't been. Sam Laporta absolutely did go in the first round in the NFL draft.
No.
He absolutely
the Lions took him in the second because they took Campbell and Gibbs in the first round.
Oh, that's right. Who went in the first round then with Kincaid went in the first. That's who I'm thinking of. I'm
Kincaid
sorry.
might have,
Kincaid went in the
yeah.
first. That's right. He went to the Buffalo Bills in the first. That's right. That's who I'm thinking of. I'm sorry. Yes, I take that back. He did go in the second round. That's right. So I take that back. So actually, there isn't really any first round tight ends that really have thrived in their rookie year. You can make a case for Kyle Pitts yardage wise, but one touchdown
Year
or
one, he
zero
did.
touchdown.
Yeah, years one, he had a good season for a
Yeah.
tight end. It hasn't translated since then, and who knows if it will.
Right.
The issue with the tight end position and the NFL and fantasy is NFL teams value them differently. We're just hoping these guys go in there, catch passes, do that kind of thing. That's not always that helpful to an NFL team. They're looking for them to do more. You need guys like Travis Kelce who can do both. Travis Kelce is not this great blocker, but he's good at it. Rob Gronkowski could do both, was actually a very good blocker, but just ended up being one of the best pass catching tight ends also.
And on the flip side of that, Aaron Hernandez wasn't as good of a blocker, and he was a better pass catcher. Like, you know,
and also a better murderer too. So,
well, I mean, he's just hanging out now. It's fine. Bad joke.
Low hanging fruit.
Come on, yeah, low. Oh man, okay. Off with the dad jokes, or dark jokes. The dad dark jokes, dark dad jokes.
That's possible,
yeah, for sure. We mentioned honorable mentions. I figured we can go ahead and mention them because there's a couple guys that I didn't list or mention to you off air that did not make my list. How about for you? I mean, what 13, 14, 15, 16, just mention the four guys real quick and explain a little bit why you left them off, I guess, or why they're not in your top 12.
So Dallas Goedert would be 13, Michael Mayer would be 14, Evan Ingram would be 15, and Darren Waller would be 16. Okay. Dallas Goedert is a player I love. I was all about that. He was kind of being that diamond in the rough guy. I mean, he was a little more known because of where he got drafted, but he sat behind Zach Ertz for 2 years at least. So he was somebody you would be able to get a little bit later than these other guys. I don't know if it's just that offense was so bad last year. The scheme isn't really meant for him, because he was drafted before Hurts, I think, was even there. It didn't look that well this year. When they tried to focus him in the offense didn't work. At times they seemed to lose him in the offense, and it was like whatever. He's not there. But then I remember it was like a week 14 or 15 game, and it just felt like all they were trying to do was throw the ball to Dallas Goedert, and it just wasn't working. So, I mean, I'm hoping this year he gets back to where he was, because at one time he was probably considered a top 10 tight end, especially with his age and how he was looking. But as of late, then Mayer's young. I didn't mind the season he had. You said you weren't a big fan. I didn't mind it too much. 14, that's not really. Evan Ingram had another good season, but he's on these shorter end deals. At any moment, he could easily be replaced. And Darren Waller, again, another guy who at one point was probably a top 6 tight end in this league, and then you get traded to the Giants. You look like you're their top weapon, and you do zil. And injuries are just his biggest downfall. So he could stay healthy. He's a guy that maybe this year you could end up getting, but I'm just not willing to put eggs in that basket.
Yeah, my number 13 is Chiggy Okonkwo. I really like him. It's just Brian Callahan coming in. They didn't really use their tight end in Cincinnati at all. I'm curious as to what's going to happen. He's young. He's talented. He's very talented. Just not 100% sure what is that offense is going to look like with him and where his role is going to be. So I had to leave him off my top 12. At 14, I have Cade Otton. He had a good year with Tampa Bay, I felt like, kind of came on down the stretch. Didn't really take it over till mid-season, but looked good. And I think, and Baker, he has a good rapport with Baker, I feel like. And I think that with Baker being there, I think that it's just going to grow and continue. Number 15 for me is Dalton Schultz. I like Schultz. I like the Texans and what they're doing, but Schultz also feels like a guy that's also getting ready to be replaced or winding down for. I think that he will be a good tight end for somebody in the future. I just think at this moment in time, it's not a good idea to put him in my top 12 with question marks surrounding him, even though there's some question marks surrounding this position in general moving forward. And my 16th is Isaiah Likely. Love Isaiah Likely. He's proved that he can do it. Just being in that Baltimore system is just going to be interesting to see what they decide to do, because it sounds like they do want to try to open things up a little bit more. And will it support a 2 tight end set, or does Likely move to like that wide receiver role and they view him more as a wide receiver? That will be the question with Likely. If that's the case and he's able to be on the field with Andrews, I think Likely can move up this list. But without knowing for sure, I just don't have him in my top 12. So those are my honorable mentions.
I don't know if Dalton Schultz is signed at this time. I don't know if he signed a 1-year deal with Houston last year, so I don't know if he's a free agent again or if he's still with them. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy. He's going to have some good games for you, but that team it's going to have, I think, more weapons than this previous season. And even this previous season, he didn't have this, amazing season. He had good games down the end. He seemed to pick it up a little bit, but Brevin Jordan, I think, is still there also, unless he's a free agent. I don't.
Yeah,
really.
And Brevin Jordan, I mean, obviously still being there as well is an issue. He didn't make my top 12, but I mean,
he's not close to it. He just he's just more athletic than Schultz. So there's times that he ends up stealing.
Well, let's start with your number 12 then. Let's start with your number 12. How many tiers did you have first? As always, we break down the tiers.
So in my top 12, there's 3. The guys after that would just even past 16. I'm just I would call them a tier 4. As far down the list as you'd want to go, they're pretty much all in the same mindset.
I have 4 tiers in my top 12. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So 12 for me is Cole Kmet. He's a younger tight end. I think he's now only coming into year 4. Year 3 last year, I believe. So 3 years is a lot of times what people kind of have to expect from tight ends, between trying to learn systems getting figured out for them and how they play and block and do all that. So 2 to 3 years is more what you have to expect from tight ends. Young guy, finally seemed to have a bit of a breakout last year. We keep the coaching staff. I think either quarterback, it's not going to make a difference for him. He has a rapport with Fields, but if Caleb is the choice for them, then I don't see it as a step down from Justin Fields in that aspect. So, and I mean, if they bring in another wide receiver, it's just opening the middle of that field up more for Cole Kmet, who is a very athletic tight end in general. So I like Cole Kmet. Again, he's a younger guy, so you could at least, if he does pan out, you're going to have him for quite a few more years than some of these other guys I have on the list.
Kmet's on my list. He's a little bit higher. My number 12 is actually one of your honorable mentions, and that's Evan Ingram. He signed the 3-year deal last year in the offseason, so he's got 2 years left on his contract there with Jacksonville. I think this offense is going to be better. I think Trevor Lawrence, once he gets healthy, it will be better. If they can find a way to, reassure that offensive line so Trevor Lawrence doesn't feel like he has to be Superman, it's good, because he's built this rapport. Calvin Ridley likely will not be back, so it will be Christian Kirk, who was hurt last year as well. Zay Jones will step in because he had that 3-year deal. He'll be in his contract here this year as well. So Jacksonville will likely bring somebody in, but I feel like it moves Evan Ingram up the pecking order, and they'll have to find a way to focus this offense around him a little bit more. I do like him also beyond Jacksonville if he does go somewhere else, just for a little bit anyways, as long as he goes to a place that features tight ends. He's still fairly young overall, he's not old, but tight ends, as they can go into their 30s. We've seen it. As long as he's in his area where he can kind of be featured, I think it's a good spot for him. And I think he's still got talent left. So he's a tier 4 guy for me, because he's a guy that I would rotate in as a starter. It's not a guy that I would put my, stake my claim in as him being my number 1. So
he's not a start and forget about kind of guy.
Right. So he is my number 12 on my list. You're number 11.
My number 11 is Jake Ferguson. Jake was a rookie last year, right? I think
No,
second year
last year, yeah.
All right, another younger guy who broke out a little sooner than expected. And, again, we don't expect him to do it first, second years. Had a pretty good season with the Cowboys, but Dallas does seem like a team who is willing to use their tight ends. Dalton Schultz had an amazing season a few years ago. They let him walk because clearly they liked Jake Ferguson. Nobody really expected him to be the guy. I think it was Hendershot was the name floating around. No.
No, Hendershot was undrafted. It was
No, but who was coming into the
it
season?
was I can't even think of the dude's name. Like that. If that tells you anything. Let me look it up while you're talking about Ferguson.
So there was, a guy they expected. So Ferguson was someone you probably could have got late, and that's the kind of tight end you're looking for. Not that Jake Ferguson is this amazing tight end at this point. Still some unknown, but if he continues to get better and ascend, he could be a top 8 tight end. And as we know, the tight end position, once you get past the top 6, a lot of times it's a lot of meh.
Yeah.
So if you can get up into there as a tight end, you can actually have some good value.
This could be a little surprising to you. It may not be. I'm not 100% sure, but he did not make my list.
Jake Ferguson, no.
Jake Ferguson did not make my list. No. Luke Schoonmaker was the rookie that they drafted last year. Ferguson didn't make my list primarily because of Schoonmaker. They took him, I believe, Schoonmaker in the 3rd round. And Ferguson was like a late round pick 2 years ago. He's like a 6th round pick or whatever. Not saying that Schoonmaker is gonna step up, but Schoonmaker was hurt for the first half of the year. I think like Ferguson kind of just took that role over, and Schoonmaker never really got back into the flow of things. Just too much question marks in that tight end spot for me. And Hendershot did have, showcase that he could be a serviceable guy. So I don't know if it's going to be a rotation thing for them in Dallas. So it just kind of warded me off a little bit for Ferguson's. It wasn't that I forgot about him. It was just more of a, I don't know if no, yeah. I just didn't know if I really trusted that situation enough to put him in my top 12. For me, my number 11 is actually Dallas Goedert. Makes my top 12. He was injured last year, had some issues, never really came. The Brian Johnson thing, the Philadelphia had a lot of issues, and I think there was a lot of issues from a disconnect from a coaching staff to player standpoint. Now, whether that was Sirianni to his assistants to his players, his assistants to Sirianni, whatever it may have been, Jalen Hurts' ego, maybe it was the GM, who knows? Whatever the issues were in Philadelphia, it was very apparent after that humiliating loss to San Francisco that something wasn't right with Philadelphia, and it was falling apart. But I think Goddard's still talented enough. He's been with the system long enough. He's been with the team long enough. And he's also a guy similar to Evan Ingram that even if he is to leave Philadelphia at some point in time, I feel like he's talented enough to be able to reach the levels that he was in Philadelphia somewhere else as long as he's featured. Wherever that may be, maybe he ends up in Jacksonville and him and Evan Ingram destroy each other's value. Who knows? But
Goddard, my guess is if one is coming in, the other one's going out.
That would be my guess too. But I mean, just because of the head coach down there, Doug Peterson, Dallas Goedert has a thing with him. So, but Goddard is a guy that I still trust. For a few years up here, we'll see what happens with these rookies because like Brock Bowers is definitely going to knock some of these guys off this list for sure. Like I'm not. There's.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have to pretty much put him in your top 12, no matter where he probably goes. Just because he is kind of a little bit of an athletic figure. We'll find out. Tomorrow, I think actually what he does at the compound, how he measures, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, you have to. There's no doubt he'll get at least in the top 12. People are going to have him up probably in the top 3 right off the bat. But I'm not that bold with tight ends.
All right, that was still tier 4 for me. Number 10 for you.
Number 10 is Kyle Pitts. This probably will surprise some people. I'm sure it's a little low compared to how other people have him. Michael's giving me a look like, but I wasn't a huge Kyle Pitts guy when he came out. Everybody looked at his size and athleticism and just assumed because he's so big and he's so athletic that he's just going to be great. And we fell in love with him. Well, one, he was raw because if you watch tape of him at Florida, he wasn't great at anything other than being bigger than college players. He had drops. He didn't run great routes. He didn't block at all. They most certainly did not ask him to do that at all.
Nope.
And you come into the NFL and you have to learn a lot of those things, especially at the tight end position. It's not an easy position because you have to kind of be two positions. You need to be a tackle and you also need to be a wide receiver. Maybe it gets better. And for his sake, I hope it does. I don't hate the guy. He's not literally done nothing. I've never seen him say a bad thing or be this guy or diva, anything like that. So hopefully it works out for him. Prove it to me at this point, because every year now since you were a rookie and you had this great rookie season because you had 1,000 yards, like that's the metric we're at with rookies, that we're calling it a great season because they got 1,000 yards, tells you how bad rookie tight ends have been forever. So
I feel like a lot of people are gaslighting themselves into thinking Kyle Pitts had a great season.
Well, they have to, because you drafted him in the top 6 of a rookie draft. So you have to look at yourself and go, no, it was great. We're going to get back there. It's Arthur Smith's fault, which, sure, part of it was Arthur Smith's fault. You can believe that, and it's probably partially true. But Drake London still had pretty good seasons with Arthur Smith. Bijan still finished pretty good with Arthur Smith. Kyle Pitts has done nothing since season 1. And I don't even think he ended up as a top. No, he was 6th in PPR his first season. This amazing season, and he was only tight end 6 that year.
Yeah, Pitts is actually higher on my list, which might actually shock you. Believe it or not.
Not really. I mean, he's young enough. He has the athleticism. He has the hopefully the tools. He's learning. Hopefully, but I'm just at this point. Again, I wasn't a big fan of him when he came from Florida to begin with.
Oh yeah, no, neither was I. And obviously I like using trending up and trending down, and Goddard, Ingram are probably right where they are. Pitts would be a guy that's trending down for me, so I could see him down near where you are, for sure. Like, and whenever we rehash this, my number 10 is Trey McBride, with Arizona. Dude had a fantastic year. He played really well. We saw that him and Kyler have a fairly good connection. He's trending up for me. My issue with McBride, and the reason why I have him down at 10, because I'm sure that he's probably higher on a lot of other people's lists, is primarily because Arizona is going to bring weapons in to this offense, and I feel like they have no choice but to. And I want to know what this is going to do with McBride, because right now, a lot of what we saw with McBride was volume based. It was, they didn't have anything else, so the offense had to run through somebody, and it ran through him and James Conner. If he gets a receiver in there and they start utilizing wide receivers, what will happen with McBride in the pecking order? That's my only question. I love Trey McBride. I would love to have put him higher. I would have, I'd love to put him up near the top 5, top, 6, 7, no issues. It's just, again, with a lot of the younger tight ends, there's a lot of question marks surrounding some of these guys, and McBride is one of those guys. Now, we'll see what happens. He's trending up for me. If you can get him and steal him and he can turn into Mark Andrews, fine, cool, whatever. But right now, he's right around my 10. But, I mean, like I said, he's trending up for me. So
I'll discuss him when I get to him.
Well, yeah, of course. You just got that look on your face like you think I'm nuts. All right, number
A
9.
little bit, a little nuts on that one.
Who's your number? No, it's you're telling me Arizona that you're not worried about McBride in that pecking order. You think McBride is literally going to be from the inside out. They're going to use him like Travis Kelce, like Kansas City uses Kelce. Is that your belief? Do you really honestly think that that's what they're going to do?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, if you do that, then obviously I can see you being him a top 5 for sure. Like
because Tyler can extend the play, and it helps when you're not the guy running all the way down the field to be the safety net sometimes.
I just need a bigger sample size. We'll see what happens. I need a bigger sample size.
100%. I mean,
like
that's a possibility of a lot of guys on my list for these tight ends at this point.
And that's why a lot of
age
and that's
really
why
helps a lot of them.
And that's why a lot of the younger guys are further down my list than most. Like you'll see it when we get to the top half of my list. Like it's the sample size is much bigger. Like it's just I need to see it more, and that's literally my only knock on McBride. It's got nothing to do with him as a talent or anything else. It's just if I feel like that they're going to use him like Kelce, then he would be in my top 5. I have to see what's going to happen now coming through free agency in the draft first for me to be able to trust that, because they have no choice but to use him like that in Kansas City because they don't have anybody. So Arizona doesn't have anybody.
Are there really any free agent wide receivers?
Well, not with all of them getting tagged and bagged.
Well, that's what I mean,
because
I mean, Michael Pittman and T. Higgins kind of were the two guys. It does not seem like either one of them outside of a sign-in trade.
Everything
or,
always
tag
happens.
and trade.
Something always happens, though, bro. We know this.
I don't disagree with that. I can't think of another wide receiver who is a free agent that I'm like, oh boy.
But if Arizona lands Marvin Harrison Jr., you know damn well that they. I'm just saying, you know damn well that they're going to run their offense through him, and McBride will be 1-2, which would be great, which would launch McBride even further.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who last year finished with 106 targets. If Marvin Harrison comes in, he's just, for me, he's probably siphoning more targets off of Hollywood Brown being gone, Rondale Moore, Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson probably would be the person. I don't see them bringing in a lot of probably anybody else other than Marvin because of Michael Wilson.
I do, because I think Rondale Moore is on his way out with that regimen.
Don't get me wrong. They'll bring somebody else in. I just don't think it'll be anything of like crazy.
It just depends on what we see. I mean, it really just comes down to as a player, wide receiver suddenly become available for trade. Like that's why I said I have to wait to see through free agency in the draft. Sure. He's a guy for me that if nothing is moved there, McBride easily launches up my board. Like I said, he's trending up. I just need to make sure I need to see the outlook of it. That's all.
I'll put him up there for now and hope for the best. For me, my number 9 is Luke Musgrave. He'll be the end of tier 3 for me. So this tier is 4 younger tight ends, a little bit more to prove. You know, Cole and Pitts we've seen a little bit from. Jake and Luke, both are 1-year starters at this point. But I like Luke Musgrave coming out. Injury was always the concern. Had another one last year. But we have seen this happen to some guys. They start out a little bit injury prone, and then they figure out a health regimen. They get trainers that end up helping them out. So we'll see. But I love Luke Musgrave as the player on a team with a lot of weapons. So it's one of those things where we'll see where he is in the pecking order. But he had a good season as a rookie with all those weapons around him, and to be honest, a lot of those weapons are injury prone too. So. But I like Luke Musgrave. Number 9, kind of sitting there. Could move up. Probably won't for a couple of years until the wide receiver room thins out a little bit. Once a couple of them move on, because we know they're not keeping all of them forever.
Right. I mean, it never happens that way. So,
Luke make your list at all?
Luke did not make my list, and it's not because, well, there's a reason he didn't make my list. It's not because I don't like Luke Musgrave. Again, it's not one of those situations. It's just you take a look at that Green Bay offense, and I feel like Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. They're going to try to find a way to hopefully keep Christian Watson healthy. I just feel like Musgrave is kind of a little bit of the odd man out in the pecking order. He's kind of down further than I'd like for a tight end to be able to put in that category. I think he's a superb talent, and I think that he fits that perfectly, and he'll grow into being Jordan Love's, target when some of these receivers move on. But right now, with everybody being on a rookie deal, it's just he's a little bit further down for me, especially with the way Wicks came on, the way that Reed came on, the way that Romeo came on towards the end of the year, and it just I don't know what to expect with that offense. Like I said, a lot of the guys that I left off the list, or a lot of the guys that are at the bottom half of my list, are a little bit younger, and I need to see a little bit bigger sample size before I can put them in my top 12. Doesn't mean I don't like him as a player. It's just Musgrave was a guy who, I just wasn't sure where to put him on my list. I just didn't feel like he made him over the other guys that I had on my list. So
I want more age over beauty in this.
Yeah, my number 9 is Dalton Kincaid, primarily for the same exact reasons. Mark, the thing about tight end though is like we talk about this every year. You get your tier 1 guys, right? And you have those tier 1 guys that dominated the top half of the top half for years, and a lot of these guys come and go over the course of years. They bounce, they come and go, they do this, they do that. And Kincaid didn't do enough for me his rookie year for me to be like, okay, I want this guy in my top 7 over some of these guys that are ahead of him. Like Cole Kmet's a guy that I haven't mentioned. The fact that you have Kincaid over Kmet is, to me, interesting because Kmet's sample size is much bigger with Justin Fields. Now, there's some question marks surrounding him, sure. And Kincaid is in good spot because it looks like Gabe Davis is going to be leaving Buffalo. So it should hopefully move him up the pecking order. But what did Kincaid do in his rookie year to make you go, I hope this guy's a top and I can start him every year? I had him on a league last year where I had him as a starter. And maybe it was my fault for putting trust into him as a rookie. And he was being outscored by guys that I could pick up off the waiver wire. So it was like, what is the purpose here of the repositioning of these guys? So Kincaid was a young dude. This is like the one position that I feel like youth doesn't benefit them. Like, yes, you're going to wait on him. Kincaid is going to be a guy you are going to wait on. But if you can get him as your second tight end, if you can get him as your third tight end, just to sit and hold and wait, that is much better to me than being like, I'm going to plug and play this guy right now. And that's where I went with this with this list, particularly because in a tight end world, as much as I hate the position, having a veteran that can score for you each week is just as important, if not more important, than having a guy you have to wait on, because you have to wait usually so long on tight ends. Like Brock Bowers, we keep talking about Brock Bowers, and we keep thinking Brock Bowers is like, this, but Brock Bowers could come into this league and completely just not do jack shit. Like it's a tight end position.
Kincaid, you asked the question, do I think McBride plays the role of Travis Kelce? Kincaid, I think even more is locked in to be that type of player. Because that's the team that keeps beating them. So I think they're trying to figure out how they can play their game. Clearly, it's working against them. But the way they used when both of those tight ends came back, Kincaid and I like the other guy too, and I can't think of his name. Knox. I like Knox. But they definitely utilize the 2 tight end set, which I think is what they will do. And I just don't think Knox will see as much of the targets. For me, I see Kincaid getting a ton of targets from.
Here's the thing, though. That's what we hope. That's the thing with the tight end position. That's what we hope happens. Like Kincaid and McBride, by the way. McBride was a start of my tier 3, by the way, in case you were wondering. I didn't mention it. I fucked up and didn't tell you.
Did not know.
But he's
so you just have
tier
the
3.
2 of them in tier 4?
Just 2 in the tier. Well, everybody behind him is pretty much tier 4 too, but that was just the way that it went. McBride is tier 3 trending upward. Dalton Kincaid's trending upward again. He's another guy who, yes, with Buffalo, if he starts getting used that way, if you're able to snatch him as your second tight end, I don't trust him as my one tight end that I can sit and start and feel comfortable with it. Like maybe in 3 years, 4 years, which is what Dynasty's about, but at this particular moment in time, he's not a guy that I want to go out and have be my main guy unless I'm in a rebuild. That's the only thing that I really honestly feel like where I came with this list, because tight end is so much different in that aspect than the other positions. We want to treat it like that, like you mentioned, like the Kyle Pitts of the worlds and stuff. We want to treat it like that. Every major tight end that comes in here is the cream of the crop. You know what I mean? Like the best thing since white bread. Slice. It does not work that way with tight ends the way it does with running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks, even really. So that's my primary reason for this. Like if you think about it, I mean, Schultz is probably my oldest guy that I had down after this point. Goddard and Ingram, I think, are probably right around Schultz's age, maybe a little bit, maybe right
they're
around there.
probably close.
But
Schultz is actually younger than he probably seems, just because
it might be. I mean, dude's been around.
I think he played his rookie deal with Dallas.
Yeah, he feels like he's been around forever. But
right,
Kincaid at 9 for me, trending upward, just because I need to see more. It's a sample size thing again.
And this is where
the upside's great.
My tier 2 starts here. This is George Kittle, and for me, give me Kincaid and McBride over George Kittle, because honestly, you're getting probably the same amount of inconsistency from George Kittle as you are those guys, and I'll take the Kittle's now.
He's like 28.
He's gonna work.
He's 28.
I guess I'm not clicking on him. Is that what? I didn't know Evan Ingram ended last year so high and moved him up.
Yeah, Ingram had a much better year than people realized last year.
Really, really did, actually. I didn't realize it was that good. Like, I knew he had a good year. Yeah, Kittle's already on 30, probably moving his way to 31 this year, I bet.
31, okay, yeah.
So, I mean, he falls in at 8 for me. Still, he's had good seasons. He's been a top tight end. It's a very inconsistent way he always gets there. He's like, the wide receiver who we call boom bust. He's going to give you games like last year where he scores 30 points, and then he's going to give you games where he scores 1.6. Yep. And how did he even get one reception for 1 yard?
Well, he was banged up this year too. So,
well, not in that. No, not really this year, because he played.
No, he was banged up. He played, but he was banged up.
No.
He played, but he was banged up.
He didn't miss snaps, that's for sure. But even other seasons, it's just how he is. He's an amazing tight end, great at blocking and catching passes, and makes some amazing plays. But again, he's the boomer bust. He's probably the biggest boomer bust tight end out there, because his booms are huge, but his busts are pretty bad. Where other guys, they might get a game where they get 15 points. We're like, oh, yeah, good job. Look at you. You caught some passes. Maybe you caught a touchdown. George Kittle goes out there and catches 3 touchdowns sometimes and put up 200 yards.
Yeah.
I'm at the point now where if I have him and I have a young guy behind him that's, we're waiting on, great. If he's my only tight end, I should start looking elsewhere at this point.
Well, Kittle's higher on my list, but he's trending downward, and I'll explain.
Well, clearly higher.
When
I can already tell he's going to get pretty high based on some of these names already. So,
my number 8 is David Njoku.
We can roll it in. He's my 7 also.
So talking about inconsistencies, David Njoku is the biggest inconsistency tight end on this list. This is where my tier 3 with the sample size starts getting kind of muddled a little bit. You kind of flow into it. Njoku had a great year with Joe Flacco. He had a great year last year with Joe Flacco. Does he have a great year with Deshaun Watson? That's my question. Exactly. And Njoku's notoriously been absent for most of the time. So he's actually trending downward for me, just because I don't know if he has the same rapport with Watson. And I would take some of these younger guys. Let's put it this way. If I had my top 7 guys were gone and I'm looking at the next tight end and I need to take a tight end, I would take a Kincaid or a McBride if they were still on the board, which I doubt they would be. But if they were on the board, that's who I would take over an Njoku. So it just because I have him listed there doesn't mean that that's how I would necessarily draft. I go through this all the time with people, and they think I'm crazy for it, but it's literally just the way that it is because you have to still accept people at the value that they are at, type of situation. So that's where I would actually, to be honest with you, I take him over another guy that's higher on my list as well, and I know you know who I'm talking about. So,
I mean, yeah, everything you said about Njoku. He's my 7. He pretty much he lines up there. He had a great season, so we know who the quarterback's going to be. We know what kind of system they're going to run. Whether they put another wide receiver out there or not, we'll see. Who knows? It just comes down to, do we get Deshaun Watson from pre-2020, or do we get Deshaun Watson from the last just last year? Because I don't remember the last time we saw him before last year. So it's what it comes down to. Does he return to the guy he was, or is he trash? Is he just literally trash anymore?
Yeah, and I will say that the other thing with Njoku is too is I'm worried about what the Alex Van Pelt firing might do for him as well. Just primarily because it's one of those situations where, does the new offensive coordinator, decide to run through the tight end, and does Njoku see the same kind of volume in target share? You had to ask, dude. We talked about this on one of the shows. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember who it was.
Nobody that good then, I'm assuming.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a bad pick. It wasn't one of those picks that we were like, pissed off about or angry about or anything. It was just kind of just a guy, I guess, like just there. I just can't think of.
I mean, is he? I wonder if he's just more just Stefanski needed to name a guy and.
Well, let me find out real quick.
This guy got it.
Well, I mean, you said he was your number 7, right? So.
Oh, it's Ken Dorsey.
Ken Dorsey,
the
that's
guy that got fired from.
The guy got from Buffalo
because he was holding Josh Allen back.
Yeah,
that doesn't feel too great. Well, Ken
but
Dorsey
Dawson Knox had some good years under Dorsey over there. So.
Well, he wasn't there long because you remember he only took over for. What's his name for the Giants then when he got hired? So.
Brian Dable. I mean, he was there for 2 years, but he was on that staff beforehand too.
Yeah. I don't worry about it too much. Dorsey isn't just. I think the problem is he's too reserved for Josh Allen. Josh Allen's arm is too big.
That's great for a tight end.
Deshaun Watson isn't. Right, so Deshaun Watson isn't, so he probably fits perfectly for Deshaun. So it could work out for Njoku better. So who's your 7 then?
My number 7 is Kyle Pitts. This is where Kyle Pitts falls for me, trending downward. Again, inconsistencies. He hasn't really done much. Even his rookie year, I still don't consider that impressive. I mean, 1,000 yards, congratulations, but that doesn't mean jack shit in today's NFL. It nearly as much. One touchdown, wasn't even on American soil. The biggest thing with Kyle Pitts for me, though, that lacks to some of these other guys that have the potential to do, and Trey McBride showed flashes of this, is he does not take over football games. That is something that Kyle Pitts has never done in Atlanta. Now, you can blame it on quarterback play. You can blame it on Arthur Smith. You can blame it on you can make all the excuses in the world. He has not done that. Trey McBride has shown flashes. Dalton Kincaid has not. David Njoku took over games this year. He's shown flashes. Now, again, that was also, a lot of injuries in Joe Flacco. Kyle Pitts has never shown that with anybody. So, whatever it may be, whether you blame the quarterback play, whether you blame the tight, whatever it may be, Pitts has not done it. So he's trending in the wrong direction for me, but he is my number 7 because he is still young. There's a new regimen there. They still have the draft capital invested in him. So there is still a good chance that this team is going to find a way to utilize him and move him forward. And it's to me, it's a high risk, high reward play. You take him as your
primary coaching and better quarterback play.
Yeah,
you should have both this year. So
you take him as your primary number 1 and hope for the best. And if he doesn't do it, you move the hell on from him. That's basically where I'm at with him. That's how far he could plummet in my list moving forward. Like, it's just like so.
This next guy for me ends tier 2. So this tier was kind of the older players. Where are we going to be at with them in the next few years?
So you have 5 in tier 1?
Yes, I do.
Holy shit. Okay. I have 2.
So Travis Kelce falls at number 6 for me. And really, it's age. I mean, yeah, he had a bad season this year, but that whole offense had a terrible season. I have to assume the offense is going to get better this coming season when they had weapons around him. It's going to be Rashee Rice and somebody else because MVS is gone. Kadarius Toney was healthy scratches all at the end of the season. So unless he says, "Here, have all the money back. I'll play for about $10 to be on this team," I can't see him being that much of a focal point for this offense. So Kelce, I think he's still going to get his targets. You're at this point. You're on the Aaron Rodgers timeline. Maybe he plays 2 seasons. Maybe it's 1. So get what you can get out of him. And if you're a contender, ride it out. If you're a rebuild, sell for whatever you can get at this point because he's literally on the downswing of his career. But he's at 6 because he's so good and that offense runs through him. Even with Rashee Rice, I consider it will still run through him just because he is that good. He is literally, if not the best tight end ever, he's in the top 3 with Tony Gonzalez and Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, to me, he's the best. He's the greatest tight end ever.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to argue with you whether you say he is. I'm not
No, I
argue
know.
with you whether you say he's. If you put him outside of your top 3, then I might have a problem with it. I don't see anybody else who was that great.
And I will go even further and tell you that Rob Gronkowski doesn't even come close to making my argument list. And anybody who says Gronk is the greatest, I discredit the debate.
I don't mind having Gronk as the greatest. That doesn't make a difference to me. Between Tony Gonzalez, well, okay, Antonio Gates maybe makes the top 4.
Gronkowski had 3 1,000-yard seasons, I believe, or 4. Like it's ridiculous. Like the amount of projection that this guy has, it's because of the touchdowns. It literally is crazy to me. It just like tight end.
I look at Gronk.
I have Jason Witten higher than Gronk, so let's just throw that out there.
Well, no, thank you.
Okay.
To me, if you want to look at it just as stats short, but Gronk was able to do both things so well.
He did. He did.
That for me gives him a little bit more of a bump because he was able to play the position both ways. I'm sure Tony Gonzalez did. I didn't get to watch him really that much. It was I was younger when Tony Gonzalez played. Yeah, Antonio Gates was definitely more of a receiver. Could block, obviously played the position, but he was the guy, basketball player turned wide receiver, tight end, who could just go get that freaking ball.
Yeah.
Gronk was one of the true guys who played both ways and did both very well.
Yeah. Your number 6 was Kelce. That ended your tier 2, you said, right? So my number 6 still in tier 3 for me. Cole Kmet. May seem a little bit high for some people. Right now, he's not really trending up or down. I could see myself moving him down the list a little bit when Brock Bowers, enters maybe, or Chicago does something insane. It's just I don't think there's, like you said earlier when you had Cole, there's not a drop off for me if Caleb is the starter. I don't think there's really much. It possibly could even be an improvement for all we know.
Maybe
we want to hope Justin Fields is the guy. But if Caleb Williams truly does have these Patrick Mahomes-esque tendencies, they're going to find a way to use a tight end for him. So there's some question marks surrounding him. He's just more consistent. He doesn't really put up a ton of yardage. He's more of like, he'll do, he doesn't get you those 130-yard games or 12 reception type games, but he's a solid guy that's going to go out and give you numbers, and the consistency alone is enough for me with Kmet right now to feel comfortable putting him in 6. Mind you, this is still tier 3. This is not a guy that I want to draft as my primary tight end, but I would definitely put him in as a majority starter and feel okay.
You want to hear how big touchdowns mean for tight ends?
Oh, I believe
so. I'm not looking at this past season because this past season was Cole Kmet's best season. Now he almost finished in position rank the same as the year before, but the year before that he had 7 touchdowns and 544 yards receiving.
Right.
And ended up as the tight end 7. Okay.
Right. and but that's the reason why tight end for me is such a hard position to talk about and deal with, because
100%.
and that's why so many all these guys are tier 3 right now. Like
176 points for the season. The year prior to that, he ended as tight end 21. Okay, so 7 to 21. His point differential was 22 points difference for the season at 154 difference. Now, he had more receiving yards. He had more receptions. He had more targets. He had 0 touchdowns.
Right.
0. 7 touchdowns, which when you look at the point differential, 7 touchdowns is more than the 22 point differential that he had. And yet he ended as the number 7 tight end.
Jumped 14 positions in 1 year because of the touchdowns, even with the yardage and receptions down. And
even the yard going down.
Right, but that's where Kmet has been the most weirdly consistent for me, is because he's shown that he can do it with the yardage and receptions, and he's shown he can just be a touchdown guy. Now, granted, tight end 21.
This year he did both.
Yeah, right. This year he did both. So Kmet
still only ended up as tight end 7 though.
Right, still ended up as tight end. Yeah. It's so strange.
But that's because McBride ended up ahead of him.
I was gonna say McBride probably ended up ahead of him. Njoku
finally decided to play tight end position for the first time in his life. And Evan Ingram. That's really evident. Those 3 guys are.
All right, who's your number 5 to start of your tier 1?
This is my tier 1. This is Mark Andrews. Partially at 5 because of Isaiah Likely. I 100% believe we will see more of Likely, whether it's in a 2 tight end set or in just rotating Mark Andrews out. Because when Mark Andrews was injured, Isaiah Likely walked in and showed he could be just as good as Mark Andrews in that offense.
Second time he's done that. This is twice Isaiah Likely has done that now.
I think he was a rookie.
No. This is Isaiah Likely's his rookie year. He did the same thing.
I mean, but that's the thing, though.
Andrews was hurt, and Likely stepped in and showed that he can do it.
Mark Andrews is hurt often because he gets used a ton in that offense, so it's higher, and he has, I want to say, diabetes. So there are times when you have to pull him off the field because of his health condition.
Yep.
So I see Likely eating into Andrews more and more. I still think Mark Andrews is a top tier tight end. He's a guy you can probably start and be fine because he's still going to be the primary focus of the offense. We even saw this season when Zay Flowers and those guys were stepping up, they still missed Mark Andrews, even though Likely played well. Mark Andrews is a difference maker on this team, and I think it's just familiarity at this point. Him and Lamar have the connection, and if Andrews could stay healthy, even with Likely, I think he could be a top 5 guy. I just don't think he's going to be the top guy anymore.
My number 5 is trending downward in the last of my tier 3. George Kittle. A lot of the same reasons that you said, very inconsistent. That San Francisco offense sometimes kind of forgets Kittle exists. And when he does that, or when that happens, Kittle puts up a clunker of a game. And the Super Bowl was primary example number 1. So George, though, for me, is still a guy who can go out, and if out of a 17 game slate, if you can start him for 12 games, I think that you're going to get between 8 and 9 really, really solid games from him. So he's a guy that you're okay starting. I feel like if you can get another younger guy behind him that you might need to wait to develop, then for sure, like, it's awesome. But he's trending downward for various reasons: age, inconsistency. He just tends to get lost sometimes in that offense. But I think that he still is talented. He's still 30, 31. We see what Kelsey's doing at 35, 34, 35. So there's still hope for Kittle in the next 4 to 5 years. That's if he doesn't retire early and go into professional wrestling. So other than that, there's talks. I mean, he's a huge professional wrestling fan and he wants to do it. So There's always on that possibility. But if you can get another 3-4 years out of him, just kind of hovering around that, majority starter, don't have to really rely on him as long as you get a tight end behind him that eventually is going to, usurp him, then take it. So, Kittle at 5. Again, tier 3. It's the end of my tier 3, so it's just the way that tight end position is. We just talked about it. All right, Mark, who's your number 4? Is this Kincaid?
Trey McBride.
Trey McBride here. Okay.
Yep. And the reason I will have Kincaid ahead of McBride is just because I think the target share is more guaranteed for Kincaid. Whether Stephon Diggs is still there, that's going to be, we'll see.
Yes.
Gabe Davis is 100% gone. I'm sure they will bring in some kind of rookie. I'm sure Shakir will see some more playing time next year because when he played this season, he played pretty well. So I feel like people forget about him with that team, and they all talk about, well, Gabe's gone. What are you going to do? I think Shakir can be a good wide receiver 2-3 for them.
Yeah.
Not fantasy-wise, for them. Don't hear what I'm not saying here. A good Buffalo Bills wide receiver 2/3. I mean, he's probably more of a wide receiver 3 in fantasy.
Fuck around and give somebody the bad advice. They're going to draft Khalil Shakir in the 2nd round and blame you for it.
But so I definitely see Kincaid being possibly the focal point of that offense over Stephon Diggs. There's clearly something going on with Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. I think he'll still be there at least one more year because I don't think his contract is all that manageable. Everything always is somewhat, but it's a tough one. But I see that offense moving towards Kincaid. But for Trey McBride, again, I don't worry about him because Arizona, near the end of the season, made it a point to start getting Trey McBride to be the guy for that team. And there was a play at one point, or a couple plays at one point. I was watching one of their games. It was on the Red Zone channel. And they threw him a pass in the end zone, and he caught it. And the way the defender hit him, he ended up dropping the ball, and he was mad. And you know what he did the next play? He ran a better route. They threw him the ball, and he caught it in traffic. And you could just see on his face, like, this is the guy I am. Just get me the ball, and I'll hold on to it. And the toughness, like, because he at that point was the only guy for that team other than Michael Wilson, and he's a rookie. He wasn't doing a ton. They were force-feeding him targets on bad plays even just because he was the only option. So I think if the offense around him is better, that just opens up for bigger plays that he doesn't have to be what did he have last year? He had a ton of targets last year, I believe.
Definitely down the stretch he did.
106. Sure. A tight end 106 is usually an upper echelon. So even if he's in the 90 range, I foresee more touchdowns. He ended up with 3. Because it's a bad team. They weren't scoring touchdowns.
Right.
I think as the team gets better, they score more touchdowns. He ascends for me in that sense. More touchdowns, similar yardage. 25. So
McBride and Kincaid are would be the 2 biggest movers on my list. Like I already said that. I said that when I talked about it. McBride easily could be inside the top 5 for me at some point in time. Easily, like there's no doubt about it. I just need to see what this team is going to do for me to put my trust into it because, again, tight end is one of those fucking positions I hate, especially in fantasy, where
if they trade for a T. Higgins, McBride will fall down my list for sure because if you draft Marvin Harrison, you've just got T. Higgins, you're getting those guys the ball because of the type of players they are.
Right. Well, that's
just a Marvin Harrison ad and just some other free agent wide receiver.
Exactly. If it's just a Marvin Harrison ad and like you said, some McBride moves up my board easily, no problem. It's just I had to approach this with a little reservation because of the position. So that's why
I went with.
Yeah.
At this point, how I feel about them, this is where they are.
I just don't trust the tight end position the same way I trust
Neither
doing
do
this list, trusting this position, trusting if this was like the wide receivers we're talking about, right? So that's why number 4 for me is a guy that's entrenched at my number 4 right now. He's not moving up or down. He's the start of my tier 2, and that's TJ Hawkinson. I look, I do not care if Kirk Cousins is there or not. I do expect Cousins maybe to be back. I don't know. Atlanta seems to be making a push for him. There's Justin Fields connections in Atlanta now, but TJ Hawkinson for me at 4 is an entrenched spot because as long as there is somebody there, they need to rely on him with Justin Jefferson because, well, I shouldn't say that. Jordan Addison kind of showed out last year a little bit, but Hawkinson is such a mismatch for linebackers and safeties that he adds such a dynamic element for him. And I think Kevin O'Connell realizes that. And as long as Hawkinson is healthy, he is a really, really, really good tight end, upper end tight end. And I feel comfortable drafting him and sticking him as my starter for a majority of the year. And just the injury history a little bit worries me. So,
yeah, I agree. I'll talk about it when I get to him.
Who's your number 3?
This is Dalton Kincaid. I talked about him. I think he's going to be a target monster. I think he's going to see a lot of. And this is a good offense. Even with bad wide receiver play, it still has Josh Allen. It's a good offense overall, so I don't worry about it too much. So I just see Kincaid being, especially a red zone threat for his size.
Right.
So yeah, he's at 3 for me.
He is at 3 for you. Number 3 for me is trending downward and ends my tier 2. But the primary reason why he's here is because until he can't do it, you have to put him here. And that's my opinion. And that's Travis Kelce. Now, regardless of whether you get a year or 2 out of him or if you get 2 years out of him, like it justifies him there. It absolutely does. But either way, at this position with him and where we have seen with him and what he's capable of doing, and he already said on his podcast that if Andy Reid retires, he retires. Andy Reid just signed an extension, so Kelce might be around for a little while. As long as he's able to do it. Now, he had a down year this year. Yes, that whole offense, though, had a down year this year for the most part.
I mean,
what's the down year, though? What's the down year, though, Mark?
This is how funny, A, the tight end position is, and B, how good he has been in previous years.
Right.
So he still ended up as tight end in 3. Let's just put that out there. At least in the league settings I'm looking at, he still ended up as tight end 3. You might look at something else and find it different, but he still had 93 receptions on 121 targets for 984 yards and 5 touchdowns. But you want to know why that's down? The previous 3 years,
1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns.
105 receptions, 92 receptions, 110 receptions. 1,300, 1,100, 1,400. 12, 9, 11.
And he still ended as a tight end 3, so that goes to tell us everything you need to know about the
Still ended as a tight end 3.
So,
he had 277 points.
But this is the thing with Travis Kelce. This is the thing, the reason why until he can't do it, like he retires or he is in a walker, to me, you got to have him in your list. Now, he's started tier 2. He's still a guy, if you drafted, you definitely want one of the younger guys behind him if you can get him.
Isn't your end of
this is the year?
We're going the other way.
Yeah, end of my tier 2.
Start of it.
So you definitely want to have somebody behind him that's younger for sure, 100%, or somebody that you can get a little bit later.
You need insurance.
You need that because you just never know what's going to happen, unless you're just going to play it by ear like I normally do and just whirlwind tight end and run with Noah Fant and wonder why your teams suck. That's just the way that hey, I thought maybe Seattle would. Well, anyways.
So did I. I thought he would too.
Yeah. So Kelce's number 3 for me. End of my tier 2, and yeah, I just feel like he just can't do it. And this must be the leeway into TJ Hawkinson here. Oh, this is where you put Laporta. Eric Ebron. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, same position, same team. Somebody can get passes though.
Hawkinson too.
Yeah, and Hawkinson is my number 1.
Yeah.
I'm still playing with the mindset Kirk Cousins is there. If it's a different quarterback possibly Hawkinson moves down depending on who that quarterback is. But I'm going to go with Kirk is going to be the guy. And Kirk and Hawk have this connection. It's since they traded for him 2 years ago, he's been – I mean, he didn't play last year the last – we'll say 3 games because he got injured and still ended up as tight end 4.
Yep.
And missed 3 games.
And missed 3 games. Yep.
He is one of those tight ends that's a game changer, but so is Sam Laporta. I took the approach, though, kind of how you took later on your approach, but mine is just for the 1-2. Sam, yes, he did it as a rookie. Show me at least again that you can do it, that his team's going to, for Hawk, he's even when he was with Detroit, he was still a amazing tight end with them. So Hawk has been doing it for years. That's why he's my number 1 over these 3, Kincaid, McBride, Laporta, who pretty much last year was the first year for all 3 of them. Even though McBride, it was his second season, he didn't do anything in year 1 because of that
He was hurt. Yeah, so. He was also hurt too. My number.
So I know Laporta's your 1.
Laporta is my number 1. Yes, he's the only one.
Mark Andrews your number 2.
Mark Andrews is my number 2. Yeah. Primarily, the way that I looked at his Andrews, obviously his injury history still concerns me. I just don't trust Baltimore drafting wide receivers. Now, Zay Flowers kind of showed out a little bit last year, but even by those standards, they still weren't true wide receiver 1 numbers. I don't feel like Zay has a true ability to be a wide receiver 1, even in that offense. And like you said, even when Andrews wasn't there, even though likely was showing out, it still didn't look right. So this offense still has a lot of Mark Andrews being kind of the glue that this team runs through. Now, I don't think Isaiah Likely steals touches from him as much as they can just play together, because Likely does things a little bit different than Andrews in some capacity. Pardon me, just almost sneezed. And then, well, I did just sneeze, but I muted myself. And then Sam Laporta, obviously being number 1, primarily from a dynasty perspective, you can't deny what this guy did. Detroit is keeping everybody together. Like, let's be honest, everybody's there. They're going to extend Amon-Ra St. Brown. Laporta's already proved that he can do it with those guys on the field. So if Jameson Williams ever decides to actually start reaching somewhat of his potential, that Detroit Lions team is even more dangerous, and I think opens things up even more for Laporta. And, Montgomery, Gibbs being there, Goff doesn't appear to be going there anywhere anytime soon. This offense is going to run through Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown in that run game. So that's any type of really good run game is brilliant and beautiful for tight ends. And that's what sets apart Laporta. And in your debate, that's what sets apart Laporta for Hawkinson for me, is because there wasn't much of a run game from Minnesota this past year, even to the point where they released Alexander Mattison today. So they're like
Ty Chandler.
That team, the run game is the difference maker for me with that, and that's why Laporta is my number 1. I'm not ever going to draft Laporta because he's going to go way too high. Let's just
100%. If I don't own him already, I'm never going to see him again.
Never going to see him.
Minnesota is a team I can 100% see sign one of these free agent running backs.
Absolutely.
If Kirk Cousins comes back. Even if I could still see them, but it's more likely to me that if Kirk is the guy they end up bringing as their quarterback, they go out and they try. I don't know that they would go for a Saquon. I don't think they go that high, but maybe a Josh Jacobs, depending on his price. Maybe a Derrick Henry, hoping they can maybe resurrect one season from him. But an older guy whose maybe price isn't as high because he's just trying to get that one last season. I think
Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is the perfect spot.
Just how much money he wants, because they need to spend money on the defensive side and O-line.
It reminds me of the David Montgomery, though. If they can draft a running back that can fit in there and they can add Josh Jacobs, if they can use them both, I think it's good. But The problem is this team is going to need, if they don't bring back Kirk Cousins, they're going to need to either trade for a veteran or sign a quarterback free agent that happens to get cut somewhere, or they're going to have to draft a guy. And if they draft a guy, they're going to probably stay on the younger side. Jacobs is still a little bit younger. He's about the same age as Montgomery is at this point in time. So I feel like that would be a good spot to sign him and draft a guy to like fill, whether it's Brooks or Benson
if they draft a guy, it gives Jacobs a lot more of a chance because you can give him the money for the 2 seasons. Right, you're going to be on a rookie deal then.
That's what I mean, though, because that's what happens with Montgomery and Detroit. I mean, the signing didn't look that great on paper, but look what happened. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to have the same success, but it's a good mix.
Montgomery didn't look that great.
It's a good mix. So,
where is Minnesota at in the salary cap range here?
They got some. They got to worry about Justin Jefferson. So who the hell knows?
Well, there's that, but we always know how that goes. It ends up making their number end up being better for them.
I will tell you that interesting debate in Atlanta today. I don't know if you saw that or not about the tight end position.
Middle of the.
They're in the middle.
Yeah, $35 million at this time.
Yeah,
so they're in the middle-ish right now.
So I'd be interested to hear what Atlanta thinks of because there are a bunch of people in there shitting on T.J. Hawkinson being in the top 5. So one of our leagues is called Atlanta. It's Atlanta fan.
Wasn't only one of them? I thought the rest of them were.
I don't know. Somebody kept saying the Hawk was dead or whatever, and he shouldn't. And Kyle Pitts was a top 5 tight end. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, that was one person.
Well,
the rest of them were crapping on Pitts, and the Pitts guy kept saying.
Well, of course he was trying to sell everybody that Pitts was the top 5 tight end. So of course he was.
Yeah, I mean he's putting. Also, that person also has Brock Bowers as a tight end 2 right now. So.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's one of the leagues we're in, folks. Is the Atlanta? It's called Atlanta Sports Fandom is a curse. So we'll make sure to share that.
Commissioner was from Atlanta. I don't know if he lives there now, or
we'll make sure to jump in there and share this for him.
Yeah, they can listen to the show. Talk about all they want. Kyle Pitts could be that good. He hasn't been.
He could be. He could be for sure. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. There's a possibility he could be. Anyways, yeah. So those are top 12 tight ends, right? Yeah. We didn't get Eli.
We're excited for him now, right?
No. Why would I be excited about him? You proved my point throughout the entire conversation about how awful.
I don't disagree with you. I just like hearing you complain about it more and more. So.
Listen, I'm going to rant real quick. So anybody out there that thinks tight end is worth a damn, don't worry about it. You're gonna find somebody. You find it every year. Where would Trey McBride go in startups this year?
And because he did nothing the year before.
That's my point.
He was. Yeah. That's what you. I mean, what it actually made zero sense to me why he fell so far. He was literally he was the only tight end I think in 2022 that anybody cared about from that draft class.
Yeah.
And people were in love with him as a rookie. Now he wasn't in the Kyle Pitts area of being drafted in rookie drafts, but people were still taking him in, I believe, the second round of rookie drafts, which I think where I drafted him at some point myself.
And he was a 3rd round pick, I believe, in the NFL draft.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
But then because he sat behind a veteran tight end on a team who was trying to compete at that time, they had Zach.
I think he was hurt too.
They're trying to compete.
I think he was.
He might have been, but they were trying to compete. They were trying to be a top team.
Yeah.
So we come into this season. Ertz is still there. Ertz gets injured. McBride slowly starts out and then goes off, and everybody acts like it's like this, somebody they never even heard of before. And it's like, he was literally the top tight end in 2022. And it's not like there was another tight end from that draft class that went, hey, we're good too. I mean, Jake Ferguson, okay, he was good this year, but other than that, I don't think I have anybody from the 2022 other than Trey McBride and Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, there's nobody
I don't
else
know if
on
I could tell you another tight end from that draft class.
That class was not very good overall, like as a whole, at all. So.
I do have something funny. I saw earlier on Facebook. So the quarterbacks drafted in the Trevor Lawrence draft, I believe that was 2021. So they've had 3 seasons now. 2021, 22, 20, yeah. So the 2021 draft quarterback class. So that was Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones.
Yep.
Okay. 5 guys in the first round. Their record after 3 seasons combined is 62-105.
Yeah.
Trey Lance has only started 4 games. He's 2-2. The rest of them have quite a bit of starts, and none of them have a winning record. Trevor Lawrence is 20-30.
Well.
Now,
but
his
Trevor,
first season was just garbage.
I mean,
you could throw it out, but still. So, but they're not winning games.
Well, but
Fields and
those
Trevor Lawrence
stats
need to pick it damn up and start winning some games.
But those stats are always but those stats always are something that are a little bit obscured. Like Fields, you can't really make too many excuses for, other than a little bit of instability of the coaching system. But Jacksonville, like you have to throw out Urban Meyer. What was Lawrence's record that year? 1-15, 2-14. They drafted Travion Walker. They drafted Travion Walker the following year.
I think.
So
I think
they
Jets
had the first overall
the
pick.
Chance. No, that was the year before that. It was one. I think it was 2 wins. It was terrible. I'm not terrible.
Like either way though, like that
2-105 for those guys. Not a good look so far.
So if you take the 14 losses away and the 2 wins away, that puts Lawrence with a winning record.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Because he gets. I'm pretty sure he was 20. He's 20-30 so far.
So 20-30, it would make him. It would make him 18-17.
Still not great though.
Hey, it's still a winning record though for a team that literally drafted first overall 2 years in a row.
Because this year though.
Well, but listen, this year though
shouldn't have been the record they had this year.
No, but in this year also, Trevor Lawrence shouldn't have been a starter for a majority of those games, and the staff should have had him sit. Well, the games that he was hurt, the 4 games, 5 games that they were. The shoulder injury he should have been out there on the shoulder injury. Let's be honest. Whatever that was, 4 games, 5 games.
I think it was the first one because then his ankle I think was the next one.
Or the ankle. Either way, it should have been something that he should have been out of those games.
I'd say 3 games. I think it was 3 games because I think he ended up then missing one finally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just. I think some of these guys, like, basically this was a sophomore year for Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. So it's a sophomore slump. Huh? We'll see what happens next year. If we're in the same boat next year, that's a different story. then we can have a discussion about it. But right now, I'm not worried about Trevor Lawrence.
I'm not either.
Fields I'm worried about because of where he might go. That's my only thing. Is where is he going to go?
I really hope Washington or Atlanta.
I would love him
in both of those scenarios. I like him.
I would love him in Washington because then we can just draft Marvin Harrison at 2 and just be like, okay, let's go.
But even the situation around him there, I like the situation there with the weapons that are on that team already. So
yeah. But I just feel like you're going to be able to get him for cheaper, and you're not going to have to sell out to move up to get Caleb.
Totally,
Williams.
yeah. I'm just,
you know what I mean? Like
I don't think it's going to happen. So Atlanta probably seems like a more logical place. Just please, and again, I understand New England's in a different, but there is nothing there, and there will be nothing there at least probably for 2 years. Please do not send him to New England. Please, New England, do not trade for Justin Fields.
So you'll be happy.
Pittsburgh actually would be another one if you went to Pittsburgh. I don't really care about Arthur Smith.
Well, okay, so New England looks like they're going to draft a quarterback. That's what they're leaning towards. Or
Hopefully,
that's
yeah.
everything I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And Omar Khan said today that they have full faith in Kenny Pickett. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody
it could be coach
full
speak, but I
faith
mean,
in
could be coach speak. But
Zach Rosen at one point too. So
Josh Rosen. Did you just combine Zach?
Josh Rosen.
You just combined Zach Wilson and Josh Rosen's name.
Probably.
Yeah, but the person that had full faith in Josh Rosen got fired.
Sure.
And then they
the offensive coordinator that had full faith in Kenny Pickett.
And then Cliff Kingsbury was like, "I have full faith in." Well, but this was the GM. This wasn't. Oh my God! You comparing apples and oranges, Mark. Nice try, Josh Rosen.
There has been numerous times when a team has said, "We are not trading this guy. Just we're trading so and so to so and so." Yeah.
Well, either way, though,
bullshit.
If those reports are true, it looks like Jaden Daniels will likely be the third pick in the draft. Because if Washington doesn't,
I've been seeing a lot of Washington taking Jaden instead of Drake.
And there's a possibility of that. I don't know. Sam Howell's close relationship with Drake may I don't know, tilt something. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I'm not sure. I would rather have May.
I agree.
I would rather have May. And if we draft Jaden Daniels, then we will be having this conversation about picking second overall in 4 years with Washington again. So, just saying. Not
first overall? You don't think it'll be that bad?
I don't want to. But at the same time, I don't want to discredit Jaden to that point because I think Jaden's a good quarterback. He fits Cliff Kingsbury's system of what Cliff likes.
I don't think so. I actually think Drake May fits better. Because if you remember, Cliff had Patrick, and he needs a mobile-ish quarterback. I don't think Kyler Murray fit Cliff Kingsbury's system because everybody thinks like the run and gun. You have to have this like uber mobile running back quarterback. You don't. Patrick can move. We've seen him get out of the pocket, get great running. Drake May can do the exact same thing. They were designing runs for Drake May in North Carolina because at times they had nothing around him, and he was their only offensive weapon.
Yeah.
So,
I think Drake
what's his
May,
name?
I just think the difference between Drake May and Jaden Daniels is Drake May has the it factor.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. I think he fits Cliff's system better than Jaden does.
I hope we take May. Trust me. I'm a huge May fan. I hope if we take a quarterback. I still love Sam Howell, but if we take a quarterback, which it appears we're going to, Drake May is the guy that I would want. So, I mean, we'll see. We will see. Do you have two sleepers prepared? Like, I wasn't going to do it because we've been here for an hour and 22.
No,
so
we can save that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can save that.
I don't even know.
Lasted longer than I thought they would.
I told you I was going to treat him with the same respect that I treat all the other positions while disrespecting them throughout the whole period of time. Sure. I told you I was going to do that. Like, I had no issues doing that. Dude,
like Kyle Pitts, prove it to me.
Oh, the tight end position sucks, dude. Anyways, yeah, so I think that's it. I still don't have an outro. I got to do one. I got to just stop. I just got to get one and just do it. I could just take one of these and just get rid of the audio and just run this again on the way out.
You could.
I could. You're right. I could. Anyways, so that's going to do it for tonight here at the Dynasty Academy. Again, shout out to Sam over there at Shady Sports Network for allowing us the platform, giving us an opportunity and chance to discuss this and bring fantasy football to you, and hopefully in a different capacity, different type of show, where, you know, this is Mark and I'm Michael, and for Eli, who's not here, we wish you a good night and see you next week, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Shady Sports Network.